English.
Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Sunday, March the 27th, and welcome to our commentary. Today, we're going to be going to Europe. We're going to be going specifically to Portugal to catch up with my friend Joao Cerqueira, who's going to be joining us. Joao is an author, he's also a political commentator, he's a family man, of course, and obviously lives in a part of the world right now very much threatened by what is happening in Ukraine. So let me say hello here to on the other side of the screen. You'll see my friend Joao Cerqueira. Joao, welcome, and it's always a great honor to say hello to you.
Thank you for the invitation, Silvio.
How now? Just so that we know, it's midnight right now in Portugal, right?
It's midnight and 43 minutes.
So it's already onto Monday. So you're on Monday, and we're talking to you on Sunday night. So don't. So this is Sunday over here and Monday over. Uh, as they used to say, it's Sunday in the New World, and it's Monday in the Old World, as they used to call it. Well, Joao, you and I met. I'm guessing 7 or 8 years ago. We met because you wrote a book about Cuba, and you've written many other books since. Your book, in fact, your Cuba book, has been translated into many languages.
Yes.
So let me give you an opportunity, Joao, to update all of us who like what you write, to update all of us on your books and on some of the other writing projects. So please tell us about it.
Well, the book you were talking about, the tragedy of Fidel Castro, was published in English, Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese, of course. And it won 3 literary awards in the United States. Then I published another novel, which was already translated to English. It was Jesus and Madeline. It was a satire, also a political and social satire, not a religious book. And it also won the Indie Reader Awards 2 years ago. And now I'm about to publish another novel. The name is Perestroika, An Eye for an Eye and a Tooth for a Truth. It's a novel about revenge and redemption. It is in an imaginary country, I call it Slavia, a communist regime. The first part of the book is in the communist regime, and the second part is when there is the fall of the Berlin Wall. And that is the book, which is going to be published now in Portugal and in Spain too. And I am looking for a publish in America.
Very good. Well, I will tell you this much to the audience, that Joao's books are very creative. And when he says satire, that's exactly it. And they're very creative. Your imagination is wonderful, Joao.
Thank
And
you.
you have, I think, I can tell you from my experience, when I read your book, it leaves you thinking a great deal about this and this and this and that. And whenever, I think when my reaction is probably typical to others, when we read your book, we put it down and we say, okay, Joao, we're ready for the next one. Come and give us another experience, another literary experience. So the book that how we met was The Tragedy of Fidel Castro.
Yes.
And that particular book came to my attention through the American Thinker in Chicago and in the West Coast. That's who sent me the book. And that book, many people have read that book. As is always the case, it was a controversial book, but I think that's the good part about it, that it's a book that will make you think. And that's what I'm hoping, that all of your books are always that way, because if an author becomes predictable, then I think a lot of times the author loses the audience, because if everybody knows what you're going to write, then I think people tend to be more they're not as excited. But I get the feeling with your books that everybody is looking forward to it because nobody knows what your book is going to be like. So I think that's a great writing skill that you have, and please keep it up.
Yes, that I think that's very important in a writer or in an artist. We must always try to do something new, not to repeat ourselves, because, as you have said, we become predictable and it's not funny anymore.
No, you're right about that. Now, tell me a little bit about your professional situation. You went to the university, I assume, in Portugal, right? So tell me a little bit about that. And I believe you also teach at the
Yes,
university, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
I teach history of art and also history of illustration in the university in my city, Viana do Castelo, and I teach painting, sculpture, and architecture from the prehistoric times till now.
Now, your hometown is actually very close to Spain, if I remember
Yes,
from
to
our
the north
last
of
time.
Spain,
Yeah.
Galiza.
How many Andalusia, right? Is that you're close to?
No, it's not Andalusia. Andalusia is near Lisbon.
Oh, okay. So it's Galicia, right?
Galicia, yes.
That's your hometown is in that part, close to that part of Spain. So do you have family history in Spain, as so many people in that
No,
in
no, I
no?
don't have.
No? And what was the reception of your books in Spain when you go to Spain? How have the audiences there reacted to your book?
I have presented the La Tragedia de Fidel Castro in Madrid in a bookstore, and the reception was very good. It was there was a lot of discussion about the books, uh, and then there had been some reviews in Spanish too, and I enjoyed a lot being in Spain. I
So
speak.
as a good author, I think you probably enjoy meeting the readers and
Yes, I
answering their
enjoy very much.
questions. Yeah,
And it's a very good feeling sensation to hear for someone that I read your book and I enjoy it. Your book make me think. That's the best part of writing.
that's right. I think you're right about that. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the issues right now in Europe. We want to talk a lot about Ukraine, but we're hearing here in the United States that there is another wave, another delta, or another whatever they want to call it, of COVID, or something like COVID, or a variation of COVID
Yes,
that is starting to hit Europe. Is that the case in Portugal?
yes. In Portugal, most of the people are vaccinated, accept the vaccines, like myself, and in most of the Europe also. But in Sweden, for example, there was a problem since the beginning because the government um, didn't provide many information to the citizens. And most of the people in Sweden thought, well, this is like a flu, not a big deal. And a lot of Swedish people die because of that, and the government now is being very criticized for that, and we are always having the covid problems. It seems that they will never end.
Yeah, it seems that way, that we're gonna have to accept the fact that there's going to be a wave from time to time. I think, I'm vaccinated too. Uh, my sense is that we know so much more now than we did 2 years ago, that we're much better prepared for it than we were, let's say, 2 years ago. So I think that if we were to get another one, hopefully, at least in the United States, I don't know what it would be like in Portugal, but in the United States, I think people would be very opposed to lockdowns and closing cities.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that is not going to work. That I think we lived through that, and the consequences were devastating for the economies, and especially for school children. Many of them who had to stay at home, and we're now seeing, for example, many school children who fell behind because they were not in school learning. So I think lockdowns are not going to happen in the United States. What about public opinion in Portugal, Joao?
It's the same thing. People are tired, and they had enough of lockdowns, and the disease returns again and again. So I had myself COVID 2 weeks ago. Well, I had 3 days I feel weak, and I had a lot of cold, but it was just that.
Yeah,
Not
that's
not big.
well, and many people have had it, and that's exactly what they say. That they feel down for a couple of days. What's interesting to me is the number of people who've had repeat COVID. Like, for example, the lady who is the press secretary at the White House. She had COVID in November, and now she's got COVID again. And she has been vaccinated, every single vaccination out there. So, it makes you wonder. Uh, Sometimes I say that if you're going to get it, you're going to get it. And that just seems to be the way it is. Here in Texas, the number of cases is way down. The number of hospitalizations is way down. And I think we're ready if there's another surge, as they call it, of COVID. What about your hospitals in Portugal?
Well, right now the numbers are getting down also.
Good. Well, let's talk about the big issue in Europe right now, which is, of course, the situation in Ukraine. Number one, were you surprised that Putin went into Ukraine? Because I was. I didn't think he would do it. I didn't think he would take a chance. But were you surprised, Joao?
Well, no, I wasn't surprised because you have done that in the past. You have invaded Crimea, which is a part of Ukraine, and also a part of Georgia. And Putin is a very dangerous man. He is a former KGB agent. He thinks like a KGB agent, a man from the Soviet Union. He had said in the past that the biggest tragedy in the 20th century was the end of Soviet Union. So he wants revenge. He hates Europe and the United States, democracy and freedom, and he know that Europe don't have armies. He also knew that Europe depends on the Russian gas, so he takes his chance. But he miscalculated the reaction of the Ukrainians, and also the reaction of the Europe and America, and the economic sanctions. I suppose he didn't think that the sanctions would be so hard to Russia.
Well, something else too that he may have underestimated or maybe overestimated is the ability of his army. I
Yes,
think a lot of us, were wondering about the quality of the Russian army. You may remember that the Russian army was defeated very poorly in Afghanistan, and they pulled out really a defeated army. in the 1990s, I believe. They went into Afghanistan at the end of 1979, and Afghanistan turned out to be a disaster for the old Soviet Union. And it looks like their army really hasn't been put together very well. I mean, that's what you see from the reporting that you are watching. And again, the reporting is difficult to believe, so you have to be skeptical. But when you see, for example, the number of Russian generals who are being killed,
Yes.
that is a bad sign. That is a bad sign. What that tells you is that you have generals who are, who are in a sense having to get out of their chair and come down to the battle zone because the armies are in total, complete disarray. And that, I think, is a very bad sign. He clearly overestimated that point, and I think you're right. He underestimated the Ukrainian people who are fighting back, and they're not afraid to fight back. So you have to wonder from where you see the situation, Joao, who do you think cracks first? I mean, as they say, what side goes home first? Does Russia say, okay, enough is enough, we're going home? Or the Ukrainians say, okay, we give up? How do you see it?
Well, first, the Russian army, everyone thought that was more powerful, but it isn't. And some of the troops were captured by the Ukrainians say, we didn't knew what we were going to do. And they are young boys. They have no preparation. And they just want to go home. They don't have the moral to fight. But Putin can risk a defeat. That's why he is very dangerous. He will never retreat. And I also think, I am afraid that he can really use nuclear weapons on Ukraine, or to explode the central nuclear of Chernobyl again, because he can't be defeated. And he knows that, let's suppose that he sends a nuclear weapon, a missile in Kiev. Will the United States and Nato retaliate with missiles on Moscow? I don't think so, because that would be a nuclear disaster. So I'm afraid that Putin can really do that on Ukraine.
No, he can. As long as he is fighting with Ukraine, within Ukraine, I don't think the United States will act. The other problem that he faces is a very weak President Biden. He is right now, President Biden's political situation in the United States. I'm sure you follow this. I have never seen a president at this stage of his presidency so weak politically, where his approvals are, around 40%, 37, 38, 39, 40%. So, he's not afraid of Biden. And also there's another consideration. When I hear, for example, President Biden talking about how he's going to defend NATO, well, I don't think that has been properly explained to the American people, whose sons are going to have to go fight in the event of that conflict. Because, if there is a confrontation between the United States and Russia, as you said before, the Europeans really don't have armies. So the bulk of the fighting is going to have to be done by the United States, as it always happens to be. So in that case, I will tell you, just from where I'm sitting here in Texas, that the American people are not in any mood to go to war over Ukraine. And I'm not sure that they would support for a very long time, even a war over NATO. I know that people say these things, but it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it, Joao.
Well, for me, the key, the solution for this conflict is China. Putin only fears China, because now he depends on China for everything. Uh, when China realizes or decides that this conflict is bad for China economy, when China decides that it's enough, we are not going to support you anymore, then Putin will stop. Putin fears China, not the United States nor Europe.
Right.
He really feels China.
Very good. Now, tell me something about, for example, the energy situation in Portugal. Are you dependent on Russian oil?
No, Portugal don't depend on the Russian gas. Germany, yes, does.
So, where do you get your oil from or your energy from?
From the north of Africa.
Okay. All right. So it comes that way. So you yourself are not threatened or, let's say, intimidated by the way that Putin is using energy as a geopolitical weapon.
Well,
You're
but
not.
the prices are getting rising anyway. The
So what
price
is
of,
the price of, let's say, I know we have a different system. We have gallons here. But what is the price of, let's say, a liter of gasoline in Portugal right now?
well, I'm not sure. What I can tell you it's that the price of gas of gasoline has been rising, and everyone who needs uh, his car to go to work um, is in big problems now.
Yes.
I don't use the car too much because my school is near, and I spend most of the time in home writing. But people who needs his car every day to go to work, several kilometers, they don't have money. People of middle class or lower class don't have money to full the deposit.
Yes, well, I can tell you that here in the United States, on Saturday, I just filled up. We have two cars, and I filled up the smaller one, which is a four-cylinder, 12-gallon tank. And that came out to almost $43. So that's $4 a gallon, which is unheard of in the United States. I mean, you're talking numbers that we have never seen. And so that is going to have an impact as well on our economy, on the family budget, because let's face it, the family budget, if you look at any family budget, the expenditures on transportation are always some of the most important ones. And I'm going to assume that in Portugal, transportation, trucks and buses, they have to rely on some kind of fuel
Yes,
to function.
transportation. Uh, every sector of the economy in Portugal and in Europe is in trouble now. And if the war doesn't stop, well, we will have another crisis. We are having a crisis now.
Right. Another crisis, Joao, that we are hearing about is a food shortage. Um, I wrote a post about this the other day over at the American Thinker, where the Middle East and Africa, 1/3 of their wheat that they consume comes from Ukraine and from Russia. So any breakdown in transportation or any breakdown in distribution of this wheat is going to create real hunger in Africa and in the Middle East. What about in Europe? Is the food crisis a potential problem there as well?
Yes, Ukraine is one of the biggest producers of wheat, and that's one of the reasons that Putin wants to invade Ukraine. Ukraine is a big country, is a very big country for European standards. It's a very big country. So the supermarkets are already saying that maybe there will be food problems in short time.
In Portugal, you mean?
in Portugal,
Yeah,
in all Europe.
yeah. And I would assume the same thing next door in Spain. I mean, the same thing next
Yes,
door.
the same thing in Spain.
Yeah. So you say China is the answer here, or China controls Putin. Do you see a resolution anytime soon?
Well, I don't know. I think Chinese, they don't want to take positions on the foreign policies because they also don't want to be criticized or on their own government. But when China feels that China economy is suffering the consequences, China will act, and I think in that day, Putin will stop the war.
Okay, very interesting. Well, we'll see. I hope you're right. I hope you're right because uh, there's another point of view that says that Putin may very well, there could be a change from within. You know,
I
that,
hope so.
yeah, I think we all hope so, right?
Yes, because the the Russian billionaires are suffering the consequences, and also the generals and the militaries. They are not dumb. They see that this is not good for Russia. This is not good for their futures, their families. So perhaps they can force Putin to resign. But in the past, in the Soviet Union, there was others. How shall I say? There was the Politburo, there was the Soviet Supreme, and they can replace presidents like Nikita Khrushchev was
Hmm.
replaced.
Right.
But now Putin controls everything. It's very difficult to replace him.
That's correct. That's exactly right. Well, anything else, Joao, as we get to the end here, anything else that you want to add on the topic that we didn't cover? Anything else that you want to add?
Well, Angela Merkel, the chancellor, former chancellor of Germany, she was one of the best rulers of Europe. She made Germany big and strong again, but she also made a big mistake. She had a good relation with Putin. She speak Russian, and Putin speaks Germany, and she believed that she can do this business, this gas business with Russia, and that those business would make Putin uh, less aggressive. But she was wrong. She was totally wrong. She puts Germany on dependence of Russia, and that's one of the reasons that make Putin invade Ukraine, because he knew that if he cuts the gas, Europe will frozen.
That's right. One more question, and this is for my information. Is Portugal part of NATO? I don't remember.
Yes, Portugal
It
is
is
part
part of
of
NATO.
NATO.
Okay. And
Yes.
when did that happen? When did Portugal become part of NATO?
Um, Long time ago.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this goes back to the
Yes,
days of
yes. In the
of
other regime, is the Salazar regime dictator, Portugal was already a part of NATO.
and so this is really this relationship in NATO maybe goes back to the Cold War, to the days of the Cold War.
Yes,
In other
yes,
words,
yes,
pre 1990 when it was the old Soviet Union. Okay, very
yes.
good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Joel, for joining
Thank you,
us.
Silver, for this opportunity.
Yeah, lots of information tonight, and we thank you so much for explaining a lot of it. And we know that you people can go to Amazon and get one of your books, right? They can go to Amazon
Yes, they can buy it
and
in Amazon.
Amazon. So we would recommend that to anybody tonight to check out one of the books and to as they say, bring an open mind to the book, and look at the book, because I can tell you from personal experience that your books have a way of opening your mind. And when I saw the title, The Tragedy of Fidel Castro, I thought it was a totally different book than the book that I read. And that's good. That's actually good. That's good when the book turns out to be different than what you were expecting. So thank you for the great work that you do. Thank you for the information on this chat with us. And it's early in the morning in Portugal right now. So I hope you have a chance to catch a little sleep. And by the time you're having coffee tomorrow morning, you'll be able to hear the links from this chat here on Sunday night, North America, Monday morning, Portugal.
Thank you very much, Silvio.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you thank you, Joao, and thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.